Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. This is one of the most famous speeches in US history. I'll give one bonus point to anybody who can tell me what speech this is from and who gave it. So this speech was given by Abraham Lincoln. It's called the Gettysburg Address. This is the beginning of it. The Gettysburg Address was a speech that Abraham Lincoln gave during the Civil War. On the right is a photograph of Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address. He gave this speech so short, nobody was expecting it to be as short as it was, and so the photographer barely had time to capture a photo of Lincoln giving it, which is why you can barely tell Lincoln apart from the crowd in this photograph. So if you haven't already guessed, today we will be learning about Abraham Lincoln. Here are some graphics and photos of Abraham Lincoln. On the right is an actual photograph of him. He was the 16th president of the United States. Today, as we learn, I want you guys to be filling out this guided notes page. You guys can either come grab a copy of this from the front of the room, print out a copy if you are learning at home, or you guys can access this through our Canvas page, and you guys are welcome to use Notability to type or use voice to text to take your notes as we go along. Whatever works best for you so that you can best engage in the lesson today. So early life. Abraham Lincoln was born in 1809 in Kentucky, and he lived in a one-room log cabin. Shortly after his birth, his family ended up moving to Indiana, and that's where he spent most of his time growing up. Lincoln really liked to read and write. He only had about 1 year of formal schooling, so he only attended school for about a year, and the rest of his knowledge he taught himself by reading. When Lincoln was living in Indiana, he was expected to work at the family farm. He disliked all of the physical work, and he preferred to sit and read and learn. At the age of 21, Lincoln left his house and moved to Illinois to become a store owner. Later, he became a lawyer and then later a politician. Lincoln's rule during the Civil War. In the election of 1860, the South was very adamant that they did not want a president who was going to abolish slavery. While Lincoln is remembered for abolishing slavery, that was actually not what he set out to do with his presidency. All throughout his presidential campaign, Lincoln said over and over again that he would not abolish slavery. Lincoln was elected as president in 1860, which made several of the southern states upset because they felt that having a president from the North was going to mean that slavery was going to be abolished. Shortly after Lincoln's election, 11 southern states left the Union. They drafted their own constitution and they decided that they were no longer going to be a part of the Union because they wanted to preserve their way of life. Lincoln tried peaceful negotiations at first to bring the country back together, but when these efforts failed, he concluded that war was necessary to preserve the Union. Today, Lincoln is one of the most popular presidents, and like I said, he is remembered for abolishing slavery, even though that is not what he set out to do. It is something that he did during his presidency. Lincoln, first and foremost, wanted to preserve the Union. Lincoln was well known for his speeches and his honesty. He loved hearing jokes and telling stories. Lincoln's wife was Mary Todd, and together they had 4 sons. Only one of his sons survived past the age of 18. One of his sons died fairly young in life, and that is why that son is not pictured in this sketch to the right. Some other fun facts is that Lincoln made Thanksgiving a national holiday. Lincoln used his bedroom at the White House as an office instead of sleeping in it. And Lincoln kept many cats at the White House. It's reported that he even fed 2 of them scraps off the dinner table, although Mary Todd did not like that very much. Lincoln was the tallest US president at 6 feet and 4 inches tall. He only attended school for 1 year, and he taught himself all the rest of what he knows by reading books. That means that he taught himself how to be a lawyer and a politician and everything else. He taught himself math, science, all of that through reading. That just goes to show you how important reading is. Lincoln also helped to establish the Department of Agriculture. He helped establish the Transcontinental Railroad. I know transcontinental is a very big word, but it just means that the railroad went from one side of the US to the other. He also helped establish the Homestead Act, which opened land up to settlers in the West, and he enacted the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery. Now, I know I've thrown a lot of brief information at you. Later this week, we're going to have a time where you guys can sit down and learn more about the Civil War in depth, but today was just to learn a little bit about Abraham Lincoln. Now, I want you guys to get in groups of 2 or 3 students, and I want you guys to choose one of the following things. With this, you guys can use your notes that you just took on this presentation. You can also go to Kiddle and KIDDLE.com, which is also linked in our Canvas page, and you can search Abraham Lincoln and use that to help you with this project as well. Your 3 options are, I want you to write or type 2 paragraphs about what you learned about Lincoln, 4 to 5 sentences per paragraph, please. If you prefer to write, then go ahead. Otherwise, you can use your tablets or laptops and you can type out your answers or use speech to text. Secondly, you can create a poster about Abraham Lincoln. I would like you to write 5 to 7 facts, and I want you to add illustrations in color, please. An example of one illustration that you could add is you could create a drawing of the log cabin where Lincoln lived when he was young. And then the last option is to write a short speech about Lincoln, which is 2 to 4 minutes long when you're talking. I know that sounds like a really long time, but once you start talking, it's not that long. Lincoln was famous for all of his speeches that he gave, so I thought it was only fitting that that's an option for you guys to use. So like I said, you guys can use Kiddle, any of your notes from this presentation, and you're more than welcome to come and ask me questions. But now it's time for you guys to get started and start creating something. When you're all done, there'll be a spot on Canvas for you to upload your assignment to.